In this video, we're going to be looking at 5 quick tips and tricks for your Sony ZV-E10. The Sony ZV-E10 is a great 4K camera which has just hit the market. There are lots of things that the Sony ZV-E10 does that aren't advertised, so we'll go through a few of those settings today and hopefully some of them will make your workflow a bit quicker. So the first setting we're going to look at is turning off the soft skin effect. A feature of a lot of Sony cameras is the soft skin effect, and for a lot of types of content, maybe makeup tutorials or things where you want to kind of soften the look of your shot, then it is a really good feature to have turned on. However, because you are softening up the appearance of your shot, you are losing a bit of detail and ultimately a little bit of control over your shots. So it certainly isn't the right setting for all types of content. Turning it off ultimately gives you more control over your shots, and you can always apply a similar filter to what the soft skin effect gives you in editing afterwards. So I prefer to have it turned off so that my shots are as sharp as possible. And to do this, you go to tab 1, and then page 9, and here you can see soft skin effect with the different settings, and you can just turn that to off. The next tip in this 5 quick tips video is to turn on silent shooting. What this means is that the shutter sound that you hear when taking a photo will be disabled so that you can just press the shutter button and you can't hear any sound. Now, hearing the shutter button isn't always a bad thing, which is why it is turned on as default. If you want to definitely know that you have taken a shot and it has successfully taken, you hear that shutter sound, then you're pretty sure that the shot has been taken. However, as you can imagine, you don't need this turned on in all situations. A particularly frustrating one for me is that if you are using burst shooting, so you're holding down the shutter button and you're taking lots of shots in quick succession, then it is extremely loud hearing the shutter going off over and over again, multiple times per second. So it might be advantageous to turn this off, certainly if you're shooting in a situation where you need to be as quiet as possible. Thankfully, unlike a lot of older Sony cameras, you can actually turn this off. In the older ones, it was just always on and there was nothing you could do about that. You just had to learn to live with it. With the Sony ZV-E10, you can turn it off. And you do that by going to the menu, tab 2, and then page 5. And here you can see the silent shooting option, which you can just turn to on. Next up is the custom key settings. This allows you to change the function of some of the buttons on the camera. Now, because this is a smaller camera, there isn't that many customizable buttons by default. There aren't buttons, for example, that aren't assigned to anything that you can assign. However, you can reassign any of the buttons that are already on there, especially useful if they are features that you're not using quite as often as some features which you are fiddling around in the menu to get to. So even though it sounds complicated changing these buttons, if you know that you are definitely using certain functions, then it can be really handy to switch them over to one of the physical buttons. A personal favourite setting of mine is to move the shoot mode button to the centre button in the middle of the function wheel. This just means that you can just quickly tap the middle button and you'll get the full range of shoot mode options very quickly. So that's stuff like aperture priority, shutter priority, program auto. Other cameras might have a wheel on the top that does this, and setting it as a custom button saves you having to go through the menu each time you want to change this. And you can set the custom buttons differently for both photo and video. However, so you're not getting too confused, you can just set them up once for photo, and then on the video mode it will follow all the same settings if you leave it on the follow setting, which is really handy because most of the time, well, for me personally anyway, I will just use the same one for all the different modes, but I will want the same custom button, so you have that kind of muscle memory of knowing what to press, no matter whether you are in photo or video mode. And there are lots of useful settings that you can change. For example, if you use the USB streaming mode on this camera, you'll have noticed that you have to go into the menu to activate this. Well, you can assign USB streaming to a button, which makes it much easier, especially if you're leaving your camera plugged in most of the time, so you can just press a button on the camera without having to go into the menus. So to do this, you go to Menu, Tab 2, then page 8, and there you can see the first 2 options are the custom keys for photo and video mode. So let me know in the comments if you're enjoying these tips and tricks and whether you've got any of your own to suggest for the Sony ZV-E10. And if you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on it. So the next quick tip is similar to the silent shooting option, and that is to turn off the audio signals. Now you might be wondering, what are the audio signals? Well, if you're taking photo or video, you'll hear this kind of chime, which is an audio indicator that the photo has been taken, or that you have locked focus, or that you have started or stopped recording video, basically to let you know that that has happened. Well, similar to silent shooting, you might not want that sound, especially if you are recording discreetly. Something like wildlife photography, for example, where the smallest sound might disturb your subject. You just don't want to take that chance, so you can turn the audio signals off on the Sony ZV-E10. And to do that, you go to the menu, tab 2, page 9, and then turn audio signals to off. So my fifth tip in this video is to turn off active steady shot. But what is active steady shot, and should you have it turned on or off? Well, there are reasons why in different situations you might want it on or off. So if you've ever noticed when you press record on your videos, it will crop in the image quite a lot, especially compared to taking a photo. This can be frustrating if you've already lined up your shot and you think, this is exactly what I want, and then bam, all of a sudden it's much more cropped. So there are two things that are potentially cropping in your image on the Sony ZV-E10. The first of which is that if you are recording video in 4K at 30 frames per second, you get a crop factor of 1.23 times, which basically means it just crops in just a little bit to support being able to record in this frame rate at 4K. That crop factor can be frustrating, but I don't feel like that is a big enough multiplier to make too much difference to your shot. However, if you also have active steady shot on, then you will notice that it crops in significantly more. And this is because active steady shot is allowing some kind of wiggle room around the edge of the frame, so that if you are vlogging, for example, and moving around with the camera, it'll use the cropped portion of your video to actively stabilize and kind of move around your shot to keep you looking as steady as possible. So this is an extremely useful setting to have turned on if you're vlogging or moving around a lot, and you can frame yourself well within that cropping. However, in a situation like this in the studio, the camera is on a tripod. I don't need active steady shot. I've got a nice wide angle lens here, and I want to be able to fit as much of the shot in as possible and not have to move the camera too far away to achieve that. So turning active steady shot off will give you a wider field of view. Just remember that it will be more useful in situations where you're not going to be moving the camera around. So to turn active steady shot off or on again, you go to the menu, tab 2, then page 3, and then steady shot. Or you can press the FN button, which stands for function, on the back of the camera. Now this is another setting that you can change, so if you'd like to see a video on this, let me know in the comments. But essentially, as default, the bottom left selection will be active steady shot on or off, so that you can change that setting a little bit more quickly if required. So that's my 5 quick tips for the Sony ZV-E10. If you'd like to see some more videos like this, let me know in the comments. But if you've enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. But until next time, see ya.